So next we would talk about the ID.4,
So
which we weren't really excited about.
Well, one of our previous videos, I mean, I was pretty harsh on it because, again, I can only have an opinion based on what I see. And at that point, I'm just seeing what other people are showing me, and so that's to be expected. When we saw it on the show floor, our first thought was it looked really nice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a great paint color. I think they chose that really well. It was the Pro S, ID.4 Pro S trim level.
And they had a lot of different versions, a lot of different examples of the car, so that was nice.
That was nice, and you can go in and sit them and stuff, and so that increased my impression level because, again, I Volkswagen's in my blood just as much as Kia and Ford are. So for me, it was like, okay, this is much better than I thought. Not just from an exterior perspective. I mean, it's still pretty standard from an exterior, but it's still a nice shape. The interior was much better than I expected, especially the light interior, which again is always going to be hit and miss for me when something's white on the interior, because it really depends a lot on the material quality that kind of decides if it's essentially deemed as cheap or luxury or luxurious or whatnot. I was very, very happy with the interior. Certainly, not as nice as the Kia and things like that, but it was really nice. It actually, excuse me, it actually kind of triggered it for us. Like, you know what? Let's make sure that we put this on our test drive list.
Yeah.
So we can get a feel for it. And then, but before we get into the test drive, going back to the information issues that we saw at the show is, I noticed, I was mentioning to Paige, like, wow, they only have one car on their entire show floor. And I think it was just a Jetta, if I'm not mistaken, because I didn't go around to the back to find out, but it was pretty generic looking. So I asked them, like, if they, just out of curiosity, did they have, any of the other cars, like the Golf R or the GTI or something like that? And they were mentioning that, yeah, they had it for press day, but they didn't want to have it out for consumers. So I thought that was kind of like, thanks, Volkswagen.
It's a little disappointing.
It was.
And
even it's not something that I'm particularly looking for
Sure.
at this point in my life. It would have been nice to see it because I am a golf fan in general.
Right. And they didn't have a lot of information about it.
It goes back to the initial person we talked to was looking at the press release, and even then, they didn't do a good job at conveying the information, not just on the Golf R, but on the new GTI platform, which is the Mark 8. They were like calling it Mach 8 and things like that. I'm like, what is it, a V8? I was getting confused because they were confused. And even when they pulled in another rep, that person was a little more knowledgeable, but they were still referencing the press release as well. So again, it's always disappointing when they're just not prepared with the information that's either on the floor or what was shown to the press. I mean, and consumers can have similar questions with the press have, and they should be prepared for that, whether they're showing it to the consumers or not. So that was disappointing. But let's move on to the test drive.
Yeah, so they had a really nice little test drive area, and you could, on one side of the lane, you could test drive the electric vehicles, and then on the other side of the lane, you could test drive their other cars. And so it was a
huge stark ratio as to how many people wanted to test drive the ID.4 versus how many people wanted to test the other vehicles. Yeah. And surely it was like 6-7 to 1.
They had all the ID.4s. They were wrapped in different colors with the name of them, and they were really kind of nice looking. And one guy behind us was, I want to drive a purple one. Like, he was adamant. He wanted the purple car. I don't know if there was any difference between any of the cars that they were test driving, but his had to be purple. I am willing to wait for that purple car to come back. And they had 7
or 8, and they were doing it. They did it very smartly.
Mm-hmm. They gave you the car.
They already pre-programmed the coordinates of the show and a sample route that you could take. But they said, hey, take 10-15 minutes, knock yourselves out, take your time. And they made sure everything was cleaned in between uses, so that way you weren't really concerned, from a COVID perspective. They were taking all the precautions they could. They recommended people wear masks if they were concerned and things like that. Really well done. Really high kudos to Volkswagen for going that far and just allowing people to just experience it, especially because you're in a downtown area by a convention center. If you don't allow people to go outside that downtown area, because Volkswagen, the route they planned was outside the area in kind of the opposite direction of downtown, so you wouldn't have to worry about a lot of traffic versus the
Stoplights
the
and-
downtown traffic and
Sure,
stoplights,
sure.
which is a short and probably not a very good, enjoyable or representative experience. A plus to Volkswagen for going that route. They
And
definitely
they had
win the test
people,
drive wars. in
they
this.
had like reps in line, so they would talk to you about what your expectations are, what you're hoping to get out of it, and kind of some of the features that the car had. And I know as soon as Justin sat down in the driver seat, they were like, "Oh, did you want to turn on the massage chair?" And we were both like, "Massage
you
chair."
say.
I believe I would.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah,
Has
yeah.
anybody said no
That's
to that
bonus
option?
points for Volkswagen. Yeah,
Yeah.
That's a nice touch.
Though the downside of the ID.4 was these janky armrests. I'm not sure who thought that up.
Yeah.
It reminded me of my old Honda CRV where my sister complained because I only had one armrest and it was on the driver's side, and it was one that you could just raise and lower with your hand, and that's what it was, both sides, drivers and passengers. I guess they saved money on the armrest and put it into the massage chair.
Well, that they probably thought, well, each individual gets their own armrest, but the problem is they weren't that wide.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the strength level would be, is if I'm sitting and trying to shift myself and really lean on it, how well it would hold up, and then it's just not wide enough to. It really wasn't comfortable.
No.
Compared to what we're used to. I mean, that's always going to be the marker, right? And that was just a really odd choice. But otherwise, I think well appointed. The steering wheel felt good and a little nice and cushiony and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It rode fine. Definitely not the speediest vehicle in the world, but it's not trying to be.
Mm-hmm.
So for what it is, it made me reconsider, my opinion of the ID.4.
Sure.
It definitely is a thumbs up, and it's one I definitely could see myself recommending it to someone, because it just was that good, especially for the I think you get a nice value proposition from that. If you're not looking for performance, that is a very good alternative.
Yeah, I think
for
you
people.
even mentioned it for our daughter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
Of course, now she's working from home, so I'm not quite sure she needs a car.
Yeah,
but-
not yet, but it's one I would recommend for
Sure.
family. That's how it changed my mind. And then, again, that's the beauty of trying things hands-on versus relying on videos. And I'm, like we said before, we're very thankful for all the content that we've seen and consumed, and getting various people's opinions. And even on the ID.4, there was a lot of people that liked the ID.4.
Mm-hmm.
Just for me, from what I saw, it just didn't really impress me. But seeing it in person, that's a game changer, and I encourage everyone to do the same. Give everything a chance. Yes, do all the research you can, and yes, that's going to provide a basis of opinions and things that you may want to look for extra and things like that. But I'll stop talking about it. But it was really good. We really liked it.